watch on YouTube for
Thank you. Zat Hashem, today we're going to learn Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Pirkei, Mishnah Yutet. We're going to see in this Mishnah that there are three character traits that distinguish somebody as being a student of Avraham Avinu from being a student of Balaam Harasha. So if I would ask you, face value, what is the fundamental difference between Avraham Avinu and Balaam Harasha? You'd probably say, I don't know where to start. What's the comparison in the first place? But the Mishnah here lists for us three primary distinctions, three primary character traits that distinguish somebody who is a student of Avraham Avinu and somebody who is a student of Balaam Harasha. So let's start the Mishnah. There's a lot to talk about here. As we go through, we'll see the character traits of Avraham, and we'll say, the Nefarshim here speak out where we find these character traits in the story. So let's go through. Says the Mishnah, Kol mi sheyesh biyado shlosha dvarim alalu. Anybody that has these three character traits, mitalmidav shel Avraham Avinu. He is considered a student of Avraham Avinu. Ushlosha dvarim achirim, and if he has three other character traits, we'll see the opposite. Mitalmidav shel Balaam Harasha. He's considered a student of Balaam Harasha. Now, to be the student of somebody, how are you a student of somebody? What makes you a student of somebody?
You learn from him, no?
So not just learn from him, but also more than that. You act in the way that you learned from him. So that's really what the Mishnah here is telling us. I didn't study under Avraham Avinu, but I could learn the midot of Avraham Avinu, and when I employ them in my life, I become a student of Avraham Avinu. It's not enough just to sit by the table and the guy's talking. It's not a student. You listen, you absorb, and then you act. So what are the three character traits that makes us a student of Avraham Avinu? The first one is ayin tova. Ayin tova literally means a good eye. Now what does it mean, a good eye? What's a good eye? So Bavadimi Bar Tanura explains, there's different Rishon and Mefarshim here explain a little bit differently, but a good eye means somebody who is content with his lot. He's happy with what he has in life, and he's not jealous. He doesn't begrudge other people wanting their assets, their properties as well. Ayin tova. He has a good eye. Other Mefarshim add a little bit more. They say also is, they don't, the other people's assets, they would be careful about that just like they're careful about their own. Because they're happy with what they have. They don't want what other people have. Other people have their money, and I'm happy for them to have their money, and I'm content with what I have as well. Where do we find Avraham Avinu exhibited this character trait? Where do we find in the Torah that Avraham Avinu... What? With Lot, how do you see? What's the story? Where do we find... Okay, he said go there, but where do we find that Avraham Avinu was content with what he had? And he didn't want other people's money, basically. That's really what it is. Okay, I mean there, it doesn't show us that he was content with his lot. Where do we find in the story of the... It's a very famous story, but it's a little bit lesser known part of the story. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. That's what it says. After the war of the 4 and 5 kings, we know Avraham Avinu went with his trusted servant Eliezer, and he conquered 4 powerful kings. So at the end of the war, the king of Sodom said, you should really be able to take all of the money because you conquered fair and square. That's the rule of warfare. You conquered, you take all of the money. And what did he say? I won't take even a shoelace from you. I'm not even going to take $1 from you. Why? Because I'm happy with what I have, and I don't want your money. I don't want you to help me out. So we find Avraham Avinu at ayin tova. He was content with his lot, with his money. He didn't want other people's money. That's number one. Let's move on. That's ayin tova. The ruach nemucha. The ruach nemucha literally means a low spirit, lowly spirit. Now it sounds a little bit like a bad thing, but what does it really mean, a lowly spirit? So Bartanura, again, he learns it means anavaya teira, excessive humility, humble, anivut, humility. Where do we find that Avraham exhibited the character trait of humility? Where did Avraham say something that showed how humble he was? In the Torah. He said, Anochi, afar, va'efer. He said, I am but dirt and ashes, meaning to say, he exhibited that his character trait was of extreme humility, anivut. And 3, what's the third character trait of Avraham Avinu? V'nefesh shefala. Now this sounds very similar in wording to the last one. Nefesh is soul, shefala means subordinate or secondary or lowly. So what is nefesh shefala? So Rav Ovadia Bartanura learns that the idea of Avraham Avinu, nefesh shefala, is that he was careful and he refrained from ta'avot of this world. Stayed away from desires of this world. That's nefesh shefala. Where do we find that Avraham Avinu refrained from the pleasures of this world? Anybody know? Where do we find that in the Torah? Avraham Avinu stayed away from ta'avot of olam hazeh. Where do we find that? Also, a bit of a detail in a story. When Avraham was traveling to Mitzrayim because there was no food in Eretz Yisrael, in the beginning of the story, Lech Lecha, so we know he looked at Sarai and he said, "Now I know that you're a beautiful woman." So Rashi tells us that's because he never even looked at her before. Wow. Or you have to know what that means, but the point is it shows his extreme sense of refraining from the pleasures of this world. So you have to, as I said, you have to know what that means exactly, but the point is it's highlighting that he stayed away from pleasures of this world. Now, we're going to go through anyone who has these three character traits. You're a student of Avraham Avinu. Let's speak them out again. We said the first one is ayin tova. He's content with his lot. He doesn't want other people's money. 2, ruach nemucha, is humility. He's very humble. And 3, nefesh shefala. He stays away from ta'avot, from pleasures that are forbidden. Balaam, if you have these three, you're a student of Avraham. If you have the opposite three, you're going to be the student of Balaam Harasha. So let's go through them and show where Balaam exhibited the other character traits. So let's continue. All these mitalmidav shel Avraham Avinu. But if somebody has the next three, which are bad, you're going to be a student of Balaam. Ayin ra'ah, if he has a bad eye. Now what does it mean, a bad eye? So we explain what a good eye is. So what's a bad eye? A good eye means he's content with his lot and he doesn't want other people's money. So what's ayin ra'ah? He wants other people's money. Where do we find that Balaam wanted other people's money? Where do we find that idea? What?
Balak would give me a whole drink.
That's right. We find that he's clearly in the psukim, he alluded to or elaborated in his speech so as to imply that he wanted the money of the king Balak. Exactly. Very good. Even though he knew that Hashem was not agreeable, Balaam, we know he was a prophet that was sent, a non-Jewish prophet, sent by the Goyim in order to curse the Jewish people, to harm them. And even though he knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wasn't happy with this, he still went to get the money of Balak. Exactly. Ayin ra'ah. Beruach gvo'ah, and he was a haughty person. Where do we find that Balaam was a haughty person? Because he said, Ne'um shomea imre'el v'yodea da'at elyon. He said, I am a person who knows da'at elyon. I understand God's wisdom. A very haughty thing to say. And 3, the nefesh rechava. He possessed the character trait of nefesh rechava. Nefesh rechava is he had many ta'avot. He ran after his ta'avot. Where do we find Balaam ran after his ta'avot? So Bartanura says 2 examples. One example, he says, is, what was the advice that Balaam said in order to cause the Jewish people to be able to be cursed?
Go to another place.
No, the woman.
The woman. He sent the women, the Bnot Moav and Midian, to seduce the Jewish men. Because he said, I know that the God of the Jews hates Zima, and if they sin with the non-Jewish women, I'll be able to curse them and kill them. So the Bartanura explains, a person curses, or a person will give advice, suggestion about something that he relates to. So clearly that was something that he was into because that's what he was giving advice. Furthermore, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin tells us about Balaam that he had a unique relationship with his donkey. He used to sleep with his donkey. So the kitzur, this guy Balaam was very... apparently he didn't have a woman. Yeah, he didn't...
it's sick.
It's sick, man. Yeah, sick man. Kitzur, he was very involved in ta'avot, and therefore he had nefesh rechava as well. If someone possesses these 3 character traits, mitalmidav shel Balaam Rasha, he is a student of Balaam Rasha. Again, being a student means not just learning from the Rebbe, but also putting into practice what you studied from your Rebbe. So therefore, I didn't necessarily study under Avraham Avinu, but I could learn his character traits and follow in his ways. Now, the Mishnah tells us what is going to be the practical outcome if you're a student of Avraham Avinu or Balaam Rasha chas v'shalom. Ma bein talmidav shel Avraham Avinu letalmidav shel Balaam Rasha. What is the difference, practically, if I'm a student of Avraham Avinu or Balaam Rasha? So he says like this, Talmidav shel Avraham Avinu, the students of Avraham, Ochlin ba'olam hazeh v'nochalin ba'olam haba. They inherit in this world good, and they also get good in the next world. Shene'emar, like the Pasuk tells us in Mishlei, La'anchil ohava yesh, to inherit to my loved ones. Avraham Avinu is referred to as Ohavi, my loved one, Hashem says. So for Avraham and his students, like we said, the ones who follow in his ways, yesh, there will be. Rashi quotes something very interesting. There's a midrash that says, yesh is gematria 310, and he says, actually, this is a reference that for the tzaddikim, there's going to be 310 worlds that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give them. Interesting idea.
What is that, 310 what?
Worlds, olamot. I don't know what that means, but something good. So la'anchil lo ava yesh, that sounds good to me, right? To inherit to my loved ones, yesh, there will be, meaning in this world they'll get good. Ve'otzrotem amalei, and I will also fill up their storage houses, means in the next world they're also going to get good. Now the Mefarshim speak out, I don't really understand this idea, because we see many tzaddikim that have their Talmidav of Avraham Avinu, and they don't seem to be doing too well in this world. So what's this idea? They're suffering in this world. So what's this idea? They'll get good in this world, good in the next world. What's the idea really over here? What's the pshat here? So Tosfot Yom Tov explains, this is based on the principle, is that somebody who is mistapek bamu'at, that's a bracha. To be able to be comfortable and happy with a little bit. That's what a tzaddik does in this world. That's the way of a tzaddik. And it's a bracha to be happy with a little bit. It's a bracha.
Of course, somebody has millions and is not happy.
Exactly.
You have nothing and you're very happy.
Exactly. So he's happy in this world and then he gets the ikar schar in the next world. Avot Talmidav shel Balaam Rasha, but regarding the students of Balaam, Yorshin Gehenom, they inherit Gehenom, V'yordin le'be'er shachat, and they go down to the pit of destruction. Shene'amar, like it says in Tehillim, Ve'ata Elokim taridem le'be'er shachat, David HaMelech says, you Hashem, descend them, cause them to go down to the pit of destruction. Anshe damim umirma, men of blood, referring to Balaam, because he caused many Jews to be killed. Umirma, and deceit. Lo yechetzu yemehem, they shall not live out half their life. Va'ani eftach bach, and I trust in you. What's the idea here? The idea is, a couple of ideas. We know, lo yechetzu yemehem. What does that mean really? Is that they didn't live out, apparently, I saw one of the Rishonim bring down here, that written on the kever, it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, written on the grave of Balaam was that he was 33 years old when he was killed by Pinchas. Since an average person's lifespan is 70 years, based on the Psukim, he didn't live till 35, so he didn't even live half of his life. But the point is, they descend to Gehenom in this world and on the next world. So Yosef, what does that mean? Since you're the only one that's not on his phone, what does that mean? Yeah. What does it mean? So it means that, Hatzlacha, my friend. What it means is that people who might seem like they're having a very good life. Armando, you need something? People that seem like they're having a very good life, right? It might seem that way, but we're saying still, no, they're living Gehenom in this world. What does it mean, they're living Gehenom in this world?
The only men believe they're very happy, they have money and this and that, but they go to sleep and they cry all day long, because they're not really happy.
So it seems to be the contrast, like we just said. Tzaddik is mistapek bamuat. That means he's happy with a little bit, and that's wonderful, right? But when it comes to somebody who's not necessarily like a student of Balaam, like we're saying, such a person, he could have everything, it seems, but he has nothing.
Believe me, I know exactly.
So he's living Gehenom in this world. That's what he's living, essentially. Even though it looks like he has everything in this world. That's the idea. No, that's the message. Have a great day. It's okay. I just wanted to have a great day, Chaver.